Hi everyone, this is Deb Tim, a Canadian girl, and today we are going to learn about setting up a worm bin, so please stay tuned. Some of you may remember Mo, my own earthworms. I've been raising my own earthworms to feed my fish for a few years now. I found this wooden box on my way home one day and picked it up. It was really perfect for what I had in mind. But now Mo is retired. Mo has been functional, but it's time for me to move up to something a little more efficient and worm-friendly. I treated myself to this new composting system. It is amazing. I love it. It's so much cleaner and easier to use than Mo was. But I did use Mo for a long time, so I felt that I deserved this. But it's certainly not necessary. Any wooden box, Rubbermaid bin, or something similar are all good choices and would work just as well. Now, if you do decide to make yourself a worm bin, I will leave a link below on how I set up Mo if you're interested. This worm composting system has 3 levels. Removing the lid, you can see what the levels look like. Each level has holes with small extension tubes underneath that go down into the level below. The first level has been set up and has been functioning for about a month now. My worms are loving this and breeding like bunnies. The soil is quite moist. Moving the food scraps, you can see there are lots and lots of worms. I'm not sure how well they will show up for you to see, but there are all sizes in here. And they are really breeding well. So I'm very happy on how they are going along. With this system, you will get a brick-sized block of something very similar to peat moss. Breaking off a good chunk, you soak it and work it until it is about 8 times the size. You add water until it is soft and crumbly. You don't want it to be wet, but nicely moist. When you have it the way you want it, then you have to work in the shredded paper. I think using peat moss would be much the same, you just don't need as much water. And finally, the last layer or level is called the liquid catch. The liquid that is produced is called worm tea. Not too appetizing to us, but I can tell you my plants love it. There is a strainer, and then underneath that is a small tap where you can drain the tea when necessary. It does take quite a long time to accumulate, but it's packed full of good stuff for my plants. Now it's time to add your worms. Now I transferred the worms from Mo, and I also added 1 pound, as suggested, of red wigglers. Of course, this time of year, worms are plentiful in your gardens and yard. Just remember, wherever you choose to collect your worms, it should be free of any type of weed killer or chemicals. Add your worms and then you can begin feeding them with your kitchen scraps. As with any composting, you must avoid dairy products, breads, meats, and oily foods. A good rule of thumb is if it's from the earth, it can safely go back to the earth. I have a mix of items for my worms. It includes everything from tomato ends, romaine, apple scraps, and other fruits and vegetables that are all pure. Avoid onions and citrus, though. I'm not really sure why that is, but it's something that they suggest you do not feed the worms. I also avoid feeding them things that are too wet. Watermelon would be a good example. I do give them the rind only. Now your worms will take about 3 months to work through that first level, creating an amazing soil wonderful for your houseplants. No fertilizers needed there. It is jam-packed with all the essential nutrients your plants could ever want. These are my juvenile cichlids, and I am feeding them both red wigglers with a pipette, and I will be feeding them a few earthworms as well. At the 3-month point, you can start setting up the next layer the same way you did the first of your worm bin. Newspaper, moistened peat moss mixed with shredded paper, and then top that off with your food scraps. When the worms have worked the soil well and they're not getting fed on the first level anymore, the worms will migrate up those holes to the next level in search for food. Give them some time to make their way to the next level. Then you can remove the fresh soil and use it wherever you need a good nutritious soil. I use mine for potting my houseplants. Then simply move the new level down so it's right above the liquid catch. You don't have to use all your soil up immediately. It can be stored in a bag until you need it, or you can simply use it outside on your gardens. Rinse out the box and it can be returned to sit on top of the worm bin ready for the next round. In this next clip, you will see Elvis and the parrotfish enjoying their treat of earthworms. They are super fast, so you have to watch closely. I also kind of get Elvis off to the side and give him his alone, or the parrotfish steal them all. It's insane how quickly the worms breed. You can tell which worms are breeding as they lie side by side, head to tail, and fuse their bodies together. The lighter brown band around the upper midsection of the worm is where the babies develop. I watch closely and make sure not to pick those worms, as I want the worms producing enough to replace the ones that I'm feeding to my fish. Now, recently, they have been producing far more than I'm feeding, so I have a surplus. But hey, I love to go fishing. You will find your worms breeding within the first month. This is by far my fish's favorite food. Elvis and the parrots are crazy for these yummy worms. The parrots are the funniest eaters as they suck the worms down like they're noodles. Bogey and Gaia love them as well. I usually pick smaller worms for Gaia and feed Bogey the big fat juicy worms, but in truth, they will eat any size. As to my cichlids, many are Mbuna, and I cannot give them too much high protein foods, as they do become susceptible to Malawi bloat if they have too much protein, but I give them once in a while as a treat. This is a super economical and easy way of providing your fish with an awesome food that is packed with protein and they will find delicious. Not to mention, you'll always have some bait for fishing. So until next time, this is Deb Tim signing out. Thanks so much for watching. I hope your week is off to a great start. I wish you a great day today, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.